Good evening. I'm Chris Matthews in Washington. On this eve of Christmas Eve, in this last full week before election year, the mother of all battles may well be upon us. Over the last 48 hours, we've seen the two dominant forces in presidential politics, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, matching jab for jab. What could be next year's marquee matchup may already be in round one. Well, the line of attack from Trump is what you'd expect. It's nasty, vulgar, and personal. He goes after Clinton's bathroom break during the Democratic debate with a bathroom slur at her about her loss in the 2008 primaries.
I'm watching the debate, and she disappeared. Where did she go? Where did she go? I thought she quit. I know where she went. It's disgusting. I don't want to talk about it. No, it's too disgusting. Don't say it. It's disgusting. Let's not do it. We want to be very, very straight up, okay? Hillary, that's not a president. That's not. She's not taking us to everything that's been involved in Hillary has been losses. You take a look. Even a race to Obama. She was going to beat Obama. She was favored to win, and she got schlonged. She lost. I mean, she lost.
Well, Hillary Clinton executed her jiu-jitsu just yesterday.
We shouldn't let anybody bully his way into the presidency, because that is not who we are as Americans.
And she spoke extensively about Trump's language to the Des Moines Register.
I really deplore the tone of his campaign and the inflammatory rhetoric that he is using to divide people, and his going after groups of people with hateful, incendiary rhetoric. So nothing really surprises me anymore. I don't know that he has any boundaries at all. And his bigotry, his bluster, his bullying have become his campaign. And he has to keep sort of upping the stakes and going even further.
I'm joined by NBC's Hallie Jackson, the Washington Post Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist Eugene Robinson, and USA Today senior political reporter Heidi Presbilla. Let me ask you, Hallie, you're out there a lot with Cruz and this guy as well. It seems to me that he was using what I've been told, I didn't know this, is a Long Island slang use of that word. Apparently, you know, it's Jeff Greenfield said they use it, and they use it around the neighborhood. Somebody else from NPR said, I've never heard it. I know the word. I never knew it as a transitive verb in that context. Is that going to get it past, will he get past that part of it with most people, or will it still be seen as a grossity beyond the bounds?
Oh, I think to be asking that question when you look at Donald Trump's pattern of behavior is almost a moot point right now. People are already. Oh, you're
Jesse Jackson. The question is moot. That's what he's talking about. The question is moot.
Keep asking the question. Will this finally hit him? No, of course it won't. People don't care, right? His supporters don't believe that anything the media says. We can say over and over again. Donald Trump insists that this is a commonly used word in politics.
Hillary Clinton is making this a big deal. She's saying this proves the guy is unfit for the presidency. You can't be clearer than we just heard her. She's taking it as a mortal sin.
She said that all along about everything that he says that's supposedly inflammatory. But I think we do, first of all, in a primary, no question, he can say whatever he wants, ain't going to hurt him. Once we get into a general election context, I think that the narrative is false right now that a lot of the media are talking about, that somehow she has to learn from what Jeb did and she's got to punch back hard, because this is going to be fundamentally different than a male-on-male kind of alpha-male cage match. When you have a male candidate going after a female, it's different.
How's it different?
It's different because Hillary Clinton has always benefited from when she's in a position of being a victim. And unfortunately, in our electorate today, I think there's still a tendency for people to like men who are perceived as strong and to like women who have that kind of more vulnerable side to them. So whenever he walks into her traps, it could help her if it's legitimately seen as sexism. Now, if she takes...
How about Bernie Sanders when he said people shout about gun control, it's not going to get anything done, and she said that's sexist?
Okay, I was there, and that helped her with a lot of the female voters in the audience.
How did you call it? Did you call it fair, a foul or not a foul?
I called it from Bernie's perspective as a foul. However, if she had never heard him say that before, she wouldn't know that that was necessarily one of his main stump lines, so I kind of called it even. But it helped her, okay? I was at the rally when she said it.
Is this jiu-jitsu that will always work against a big-mouth opponent like Trump?
Well, I think it has a good chance of working, and I think it's more than just the sexism angle. I think it's in fact, she wants to sound like a reasonable, experienced, in-charge person, as opposed to this maniac, Donald Trump. And so a certain contrast is set up when he's using language like that, and she's being calm and maybe even a little boring. You get into a general election, and people have a binary choice to make, right? Are you going to take
Gene,
wacky,
you're so
or are you
smart
going to take,
again. The way she slowed down her cadence. Like most politicians, she can talk quickly or not. She slowed it way down. And she has that beautiful, cultured voice of hers. I call it Karen Carpenter voice, a perfect voice. And she did it so well, almost like she was like doing a sidelines estimate of what's going on. Welcome back to Hardball. Ted Cruz is slamming the Washington Post today for an editorial cartoon published online last night. The image shows Cruz dressed as Santa Claus playing a street organ, and it depicts his children as monkeys, showing them as political props. The cartoon was a criticism of the TV ad. The Cruz campaign debuted over the weekend in Iowa. It's a Christmas-themed attack ad, by the way, cleverly disguised as self-parody. And it features Cruz's daughters. Take a look.
Imagine the greatest Christmas stories told by the senator who once read Green Eggs and Ham from the Senate floor.
'Twas the night before the shutdown, and all through the House, not a bill was stirring, not even to fund a mouse.
A Proven Record presents a collection of timeless Christmas classics, read by the trusted conservative leader, Ted Cruz. Favorites such as How Obamacare Stole Christmas. The whole family will enjoy reading stories like The Grinch, Who Lost Her Emails.
I know just what I'll do, she said with a snicker. I'll use my own server, and no one will be the wiser.
And if you act now, we'll throw in the inspiring new Christmas story, soon to be an instant classic.
Please read this one, Daddy.
Okay.
The Senator Who Saved Christmas.
Well, reacting to that cartoon on Twitter, Cruz said, "Stick with the attacking me. Caroline and Catherine are out of your league." And the cartoon was later retracted by the Washington Post editorial page editor. Anyway, the Cruz campaign is now fundraising off the cartoon with emails to its supporters. He further expressed outrage today at a campaign stop out in Oklahoma.
Everyone expects the mainstream media to be liberal, to be biased. Folks want to attack me, knock yourself out. That's part of the process. I signed up for that, that's fine. But my girls didn't sign up for that. And I have to say, when people ask me what's the hardest part of the campaign, the single hardest part of the campaign is being away from my daughters, is getting up and getting on an airplane and leaving, and not being able to kiss my daughters good night, not being able to read them a bedtime story. And so it used to be for a long time the rules across the board that kids are off limits. That should be the rules. Don't mess with our kids.
Jeremy Peters is with the New York Times, and Caitlin Huey Burns is with Real Clear Politics. Caitlin, what crowd's going to buy that from him?
Well,
he's used his kids in an ad, a pointed attack ad against Obama and everybody else and Hillary, with all the nasty attacks put in the language of the little kid. He did the whole thing. And then he gets mad because the Post does a bad, they do it, the commercial makes his kid look like, and a cartoon makes his kid look like monkeys. They went too far, obviously. But he's the guy running for president, not the cartoonist at the Washington Post. How is he behaving here?
Well, the conservative base loves going after the media. They love when candidates do it. Cruz
they think the Washington Post is still a liberal newspaper, I guess.
Oh, sure. And we've seen all sorts of candidates fundraise off stories they thought were unfair. Yeah. So I really think it could have been, it didn't even have to be this egregious for him to go after the Washington Post and use it to fuel his supporters. And, he was fundraising off of it today, and it really speaks to that base in Iowa that he's trying to cultivate support with.
If this was a basketball game, all we'd be watching are foul calls. Hillary's calling fouls, this guy's calling fouls. It seems like the way you get attention is call a foul on the opponent or the media.
Well, I think
blame the ref.
What this really plays into among conservatives is that sense of grievance. I mean, conservatives are very good at feeling offended by that, especially when the liberal media is involved. I mean, that happens all the time. And Trump has done this. Cruz, we've seen, has done this. Rubio has done this. Rubio has fundraised off, I don't know how many New York Times stories.
The liberal media, if you will, are last in line.
Yeah.
His fellow Republican colleagues can't stand the guy.
No, that's absolutely
That's out there. Go report it. It's there. You ask any one of them. Find a friend of Ted Cruz. I said that's a good sidebar piece. A friend of Ted Cruz. Go ahead.
No, it's just there's a complex, and this is why I think Trump does so well in the Republican base right now, is because there is a feeling, a sense that the country has slipped away from them, a sense that the deck has been stacked against them, and this is just one other element that feeds into that.
This humor is so lowbrow, but look, here's Ted Cruz tweeting out a Photoshop picture of Hillary Clinton walking a pair of dogs, and one labeled the New York Times, the other labeled the Washington Post. The caption reads, "Seems like a better idea for our cartoon, Hillary and her lap dogs." So having made fun, well, I don't even know how to do this. You yell foul, and then you go back and makes fun of her.
The same thing, right?
I just think that he's going to create an environment where we lose the presidency. He's not going to be president, and he'll do damage to the conservative cause, and we need to take a stand. And for some odd reason, I'm the only guy willing to do it.
Welcome back to Harvard. That was, of course, Jeb Bush making the argument that Donald Trump is damaging the Republican Party's chance of winning the election next year. But it seems his warning has fallen on deaf ears, if you will, as the prospects for establishment candidates like him grows dimmer and dimmer. According to the latest CNN opinion research poll out today, the combined support for outsider candidates, that would be Donald Trump, of course, Ted Cruz, and Dr. Ben Carson, represents 67% of the Republican electorate right now. Two-thirds of Republicans out there are saying they want somebody besides establishment candidates. The establishment candidates, if you make a long list of them, including everybody possible to put on that list, is Marco Rubio, Chris Christie, Jeb Bush together, all together garnered, well, about 18%. They're still in the teens altogether. Well, last April, Senator Cruz implored his party not to choose another establishment candidate in 2016. And now Republican voters seem to be heeding that advice. Here's Cruz.
If we nominate another candidate in the mold of a Bob Dole, or a John McCain, or a Mitt Romney, and all three are good, honorable, decent men, they're heroes, but what they did didn't work. And if we do it again, the same voters who stayed home in 08 and 12 will stay home in 16, and Hillary Clinton will be the next president.
With just 40 days now until the first contest, the Republican electorate, at least, of 2016 seems ready to nominate a candidate who swings for the fences rather than the more conventional and safer choices of years past. I'm joined now to talk about it by our Hardball Roundtable tonight. Stephen Hess is a respected political analyst and author of the brand new book, America's Political Dynasties, From Adams to Clinton. I think he may have it with Clinton. Michelle Bernard is president of Bernard Center for Women, and David Korn is an MSNBC political analyst and Washington bureau chief for Mother Jones. I want to start with you, Michelle. Why is it? I know you're a moderate Republican at heart. Why that wing of the party, that reasonable northeastern party, seemed to be withered down to Jeb Bush is getting 3% today in the polls.
What happened? As a very firm, independent thinker,
erstwhile moderate Republican.
What I would say is that, you know, a large part of the Republican electorate has just had it. It's not even just Republicans. It's Republicans, it's Democrats, it's independents. Everything that people have been promised has not been delivered. So they are excited by someone.
Well, the Hillary establishment is strong.
Well, Hillary establishment is strong, but being a woman makes her an outsider.
Oh,
that's what she says.
David, do you buy that?
And that's what I say.
Do you buy the fact that gender makes her an outsider?
Well,
it absolutely does.
I think to a certain extent, not as much as, you know, as Ben Carson is an outsider, but I do think that you have, with those Republican numbers, you show that the Republican base, and I think the Republican base is not reflective of the whole country. Republicans make 28% of the nation overall. Two-thirds of that would be what, 20% or so. So you got 20% of the public that's ticked off. They're angry. They hate Barack Obama. They believe he is a secret socialist Muslim from Kenya who wants to destroy the country through Obamacare and black helicopters and take your gun away. And they've been basically exploited by the Republican Party and empowered by the Republican Party for the last 8, 10, 12 years. And now they're basically saying, okay, time for you guys to put up or shut up. If you're not giving us what we want, we'll turn the
It's like the French and Indian War with the French and the well-perfumed French soldiers with their Iroquois allies. And then they hear that the Iroquois are taking scalps, which they taught them how to do.
Yes.
And they, oh, we can't believe that's going on now.
Well, I think this guy knows about that history.
Steve, tell me about this, because the Republican Party has always been made up of the extreme, of course, the abolitionists originally before the Civil War, and the establishment Whigs, like the Bushes. This year, the Bushes are 3%. How do you explain it?
Look,
you wrote this book. Did you think Bush should be at 3?
I wrote that book because I thought this was going to be the year of Bush versus Clinton. Hey,
Yeah.
it was a good premise to go.
Well, you got the Clinton part.
I got the Clinton part right. I came with Dwight Eisenhower as his speechwriter. I'm waiting for.
But this
I'm
fight.
waiting. I'm still
But Steve,
waiting.
I'm sitting next to you, and I'm remembering, because I know the history, and you were there in 1952.
Yeah.
Everett Dirksen gave the same speech that we just heard Cruz give.
Yeah.
You moderates, you centrists are taking us down the road to defeat. Of course, that year they gave us Eisenhower, and you worked with Eisenhower, and he won big.
Yeah, no,
as a moderate.
I was there. That was the last time we had a brokered convention, meaning that when we went into the hall on day 1, we didn't know who the nominee was going to be on day 3. And if people are looking for that today, let me tell you, they haven't seen chaos yet. I mean,
you think we're heading there?
I have no idea what's heading there, but if you want to have fun, ask for a brokered convention. Yeah. I mean, there were fights on the floor of the convention.
And the year with some thoughts about our country. The American presidency is not a slot in the U.S. government. It's an office of the people, with all the constitutional rigmarole of electoral votes and some archaic meeting of the Electoral College. The presidency belongs to the American people. There's not a person in the country who doesn't have some personal attitude, some feeling, some notion about the person who's our president. I say all this because there's a reason one person rises high in the polls heading into a presidential election year, a reason why another falls flat or never rises at all, and why still another, many others, oftentimes, just sit there exciting no one, inspiring no one, presenting a compelling future to no one. Well, like me, you probably can't stand the person who simply puts their name on the ballot and checks all the boxes, says what all the pressure groups want politicians to agree to, the accepted positions on labor and business and foreign policy. And this is precisely why when someone like Donald Trump comes along, we pay attention. Who are we supposed to pay attention to in a Congress that has 535 voting members and most people can't name 3 of them? Who are we supposed to talk about when those 535 members of Congress and 50 governors basically say such predictable nothingness we can't remember it a minute later? So, yes, we go to Christmas and the New Year, and we come back in early January, heading to the first big test, Iowa, New Hampshire, with the country watching, listening, and wondering why this guy, Donald Trump, is getting all the ink and airtime. It's because all the others have forfeited by the same old paint-by-numbers politics, reciting in chorus just what they're supposed to say to keep their positions of very little influence in our lives. Trump isn't the problem. He's the symptom. He fills the gap between what we want and dream of from our leaders, and what we hope they do, and the dull creatures of survival that they actually are. With the U.S. Congress in single digits of total approval from across the country, what did you expect 2016 to bring us? Someone has to be out there in Iowa and New Hampshire screaming, I'm sick and tired, I'm not going to take it anymore. And someone has to be out there reminding us that this used to be the country that promised big